Hello, welcome to DwreckTV. I'm Dwreck. And today, I finally get to talk about a console that I've never talked about a lot on this channel, if not ever. And that is PlayStation 2. Wow, where do I begin with this? I know it's kind of not frustrating, but it stresses me out because I've never spoke about this system. But I have to tell y'all, even though I didn't own the PlayStation 1, I played it with my friends and relatives back in the day. But the PlayStation 2, why I hold this in such a high regard is the fact that this was the first non-Nintendo console I've ever owned. Because like I've said, back in the days, I used to just play a lot of Nintendo, then a Super Nintendo, to the N64, the GameCube, and so forth. But when it came to PlayStation, played with my friends and relatives, but the PlayStation 2, there was just something about it. There was like a mystique to it. And the fact that when it came out, there was so much hype around it. There was so much hype around it being like the most revolutionary console to ever be created at that time. We're talking early 2000, the year 2000. This is when the PS2 came out. And everybody was raving about it. Everybody was just going crazy over it. I was saying like how awesome the games were going to be, and especially with it being a DVD player. Whoa! Like that was because DVDs were becoming a big thing and very, very prevalent around this time. And with this being a DVD player, this is what you called a game changer. You could play your movies on it. You could play music CDs. This thing did it all. And the one person that was convincing me to get a PlayStation 2 when it was coming around was actually my father. Believe it or not, my father was convincing me, 16 years old at this time, on getting the PlayStation 2. And at first I was like, I don't know, because I know my cousins and my friends probably gonna be getting it, and like I don't know, because I was solely on Nintendo, and my dad knew that too. But Christmas 2001, this is when I got it. And when I opened that up, I was blown away. I was so excited because this was the first non-Nintendo console I ever had. And when we fired this thing up, it was like nothing I'd ever experienced at that time. It was like my mind just went from this to this. Like my brain, my mind, my imaginations and everything just expanded across the horizons. This game broadened my horizons like nothing else, like I've never experienced before at that time, ever. And I got a lot to thank for this console, because even though I love the GameCube and everything, the PlayStation 2 I love just as much. Especially because, like I said, you can play PlayStation 1 games, and you can play movies like DVDs and music CDs. I gotta put this in perspective. If you was like 15, 16 years old in the year 2000 going into 2001, having the PlayStation 2 was a big deal. If you had this, you had a PS2, this was it. And what I mean by it is like you had this, you was the coolest kid on the block. That's the best way I can describe it. You was the coolest kid on the block if you had a PS2. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But when I had my PS2, Christmas 2001, especially during 2001, because, like I've said, 2001 was a very pivotal point in my life and the lives of a lot of people, especially coming off the heels of a certain day in September of that year. Yeah, we all know what that was. So there was like a lot of uncertainties. We didn't know whether or not everything was going to be all right or whatever, but it was like after a while, things just started settling down. It was going to be like, everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be okay. And then whenever like PS2 was out, and then the GameCube and the Xbox came out, everything just felt like everything was going to be okay, even in times of darkness. But by the time we got into 2002, it was like came out from the ocean and just saw bright sunshines. And that's exactly what I think about with the PS2 and the GameCube and the Xbox, was just sunshine and awesome games that during a time when there was so much innovation, there was so much awesomeness coming out during this time that it rivaled that of the 90s. Everybody wants to talk about like, oh, 80s and 90s gaming, they'll never be top and everything. Dude, you play some of these games on a PS2, the GameCube, and the Xbox. This was one of the most incredible generations I've ever experienced. Everything was just on fire. All the freaking games that was coming out, they was coming out on top of each other. I did the research. I was like, what kind of games that came out during this time? So I looked them all up. I looked at all the dates and everything. These banger after banger every freaking week. It seemed like every week games were just coming out banger after banger. That's how incredible this generation was. And I wish to God that teenagers nowadays could experience something like that now. So with that being said, as important as this console is to me, what are my top 10 favorite games on the PS2? Well, I wish I would have spoke about this console a lot more in my past videos, but I was just doing other things. But finally, now I'm right here. We're in the game room. I got her out here, right here. Let's finally talk about PS2 games. But before I get to them, let's land some honorable mentions. Now, before I go any further with the honorable mentions and go into the top 10s, I gotta let y'all know, just like with the PlayStation 1, these are games that I played myself. These are games I played with my relatives and games I played with my friends from high school and elsewhere. So, don't expect the obvious. So, let's get with... I got Alright, honorable mention number 1 is a game called Malice. I remember seeing this game. I remember hearing about it on Extended Play, and I thought this game looked like it was gonna be really cool. I really love the character Malice. I love her. I love her designs. I love her fashion. I love the gameplay and everything. And then when I finally got it, I thought this was a pretty cool platformer. I really like it. And another one, this one, I played this one with Robert and Duke a lot, especially on PC, is Need for Speed Underground 2. This game, not really too much on realistic racing games, but the only exception would be like Cruising USA. But Need for Speed Underground 2, there was something about this game that I really enjoyed, especially playing it with Robert and Duke. The soundtrack was great. The graphics were fantastic on this thing. And funny thing is that the cars that we made, like our creative wrestlers that we played on like SmackDown and the No Mercy and everything, we created their cars on this game. So that's what I really like about this game. Next one, oh man, I rented this a lot, and it's Ratchet and Clank. I really love Ratchet and Clank. I really love the characters to them. I love the graphics to them. I love the gameplay and the fact that you got so many off-the-wall weapons that it's just freaking nuts. No pun intended. But the first Ratchet and Clank game, I rented this, and then I finally got it, and I really love this. I love these kind of games. This one, next up, is Rygor the Legendary Adventure. I remember seeing the review on this on Extended Play, and I just thought, I really would love to play this game. Then, I couldn't find it at my local rentals and everything, so I wound up finding it at a pawn shop years and years later, and I thought this was a pretty cool game. Really good one. Oh boy. Next one, not much on first-person shooters, but I love this, is Agent Under Fire 007. Just like with Nightfire, Agent Under Fire is one of my favorite first-person shooter games, and definitely a very fun James Bond game. It's almost like how, like I said, GoldenEye is for the N64, Nightfire is for the GameCube, Agent Under Fire is this for the PS2. Very fun. Next is UFC Sudden Impact. This game, the graphics were fantastic. The fighting mechanics were very realistic, especially for the PS2. This game was just fantastic. To me, I think it was almost like ahead of its time in its way, especially considering how the UFC games would eventually come out on PS3. Sudden Impact's really good. Oh man, this one. I remember my cousin Max and Roy were playing this game a lot, and that's God of War. God of War was brutal. Absolutely brutal. It was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. And the reason why I didn't really put it on the top 10 is because I played it late in the PS2 lifespan, and this was mostly Max's game, so I just let him have it. But overall, God of War is fantastic. Me, Robert, and Duke rented this game once, and it's a Pride FC. Features a lot of Pride fighters, and the gameplay is fantastic. The gameplay is like very frantic. It's like very arcadey, and when you're hitting the guys with punches and kicks, it sounds like double barrel shotguns going off. Freaking great. Y'all gotta check that out. Next, Max rented this a lot as well, is ATV Off-Road Fury. When I played this, I want to say this was one of the first PS2 games I played with Max, and the environment of it, like the entire scope of the whole game was just phenomenal. Like the open world, I love the open worldness of this game. Like just rolling around on your ATVs and then just listen to a rocking soundtrack, especially the game with things like Seven Dust and everything, and just cruising off in an open world setting. It was just mind-blowing and absolutely phenomenal. This was one of the last PS2 games I got during that time, and that's Fire Pro Wrestling Returns. When I first heard about this, it was saying stuff like you can create your own wrestlers, you can create just about anybody from any era and everything. I thought this was fantastic. I tried playing it, and at first I couldn't get my grasp on it, but overall it was pretty cool. But it just felt very outdated in a way of like, the game came out in 2007, and the game just felt like it was made in like 2004, 2005. So automatically it felt very outdated. But what else should I say I had? But there's also during the time when I was wishing like, man, I just wish that they had a game called like, you can just create anybody from any era. You can have a whole bunch of people. You could just add anything, and like call it like maybe Pro Wrestling World. Like just create anybody and create every promotion you can think of. And I was thinking about that in 2007. Then fast forward 10, 11 years later, they got Fire Pro Wrestling World. But Fire Pro Wrestling Returns at itself is pretty good. Another one, Def Jam Fight for New York. This game was bonkers. Just like with Def Jam Vendetta, this one is more like street fights and everything. You got a whole bunch of rappers like DMX, Busta Rhymes, and Method Man and Redman. Everybody in this game was freaking great. This one, probably one of my favorite racing games on the PS2. It's Freak Style. This game was insane. You're doing a whole bunch of crazy stunts. You're freaking out and everything. The whole freak out styles and everything. And you're just plowing through the tracks. This game was nuts. I loved it. And another one, I love this one. It's Splashdown. Splashdown was the PlayStation 2's answer to the GameCube's Wave Race Blue Storm. If you like Blue Storm, you're gonna like Splashdown. It's just like it. It has great graphics, it has great gameplay. It even has a great soundtrack on it. I'll give it that. It's got a good soundtrack, but definitely Splashdown it's the PS2 version of Wave Race Blue Storm. I don't have this game, but my friends Karshlead and Harpoon played this a lot in high school, and that is Kingdom Hearts. When I first heard of Kingdom Hearts, I would just dismiss this game outright because this was during a time when I wanted nothing to do with Disney. I was like, I'm too old for Disney. I don't want nothing to do with Disney anymore. Just get it out of my face. Just get it out of my face. But after a while, after seeing Karshlead and Harpoon play it, it was like this game was amazing. It really was. I love the characters to it. I love Sora. I love Karai. I love all the others. I love like the interactions that they had with Donald and Goofy and all the other Disney characters. It was just amazing. Even though I never really, like I said, I'm not really much of an RPG guy, but there was something about Kingdom Hearts that even though I wanted to distance myself from Disney during this time, but it was an amazing experience with this game. The music was great. The graphics were fantastic. Will I ever get this game? Maybe one day, but as of right now, I really don't have no use for it right now. I got 3 left. This one, this could have been on the countdown, but I didn't own it at that time, and that's SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. My friend Bobby Balls from high school, he had this game, and I played it at his house a lot, and I thought this game was great. The graphics were pretty cool, and I like the fact that you can fight outside in the streets and everything, and also you can fight in the streets during the winter time. I thought that was really cool. But I wound up getting this game around, I want to say I got it around like 2007, 2008, around that time. But it's fantastic. Another one that's great is, this could have been on the countdown too. Like the last 3 could have been on the countdown, but I'll put this at like number 12 or something. That's Crash Bandicoot Wrath of Cortex. In this game, Crash is back. He's going after Cortex again, but this time you got like 4 different elements that you gotta collect and destroy and everything, and he also gotta destroy this thing called Crunch. This dude was freaking nuts. And you're doing a whole bunch of stuff in this game. You can play as Coco, you're going on gliding, you're going into balls that look like Super Monkey Ball, you're driving a Jeep outrunning a stampede of rhinoceroses. This game was just nuts. I absolutely loved it. If I would have had like a top 15 or something, this would definitely be on the countdown. And finally, of honorable mentions, this game could have and should have been on the countdown of top 10s. And that's Devil May Cry 3. My friend Karshly played this a lot. He was playing this at the same time he was playing Star Fox Assault. He would just jump back and forth between both of them games. I played a little bit of this game, but I played with it a lot with Karshly, and he loves this game, and this game was just great. The graphics were great, the controls were great, the music was fantastic. The aesthetics of this game was just mind-blowing. I absolutely love this game, especially with Virgil and Arkham and everything, and Lady. This game was great. I would highly recommend Devil May Cry 3 to anybody that wants to get a PS2 collection going on. Alright, now, man, almost 20 minutes, close to 20 minutes in this thing. Now, let's get into DwreckTV's top 10 games for PlayStation 2.
And now, DwreckTV's top 10 PlayStation 2 games. Turn it to me. Number 10.
Finally, after all these years, we're going to be talking about top 10 PS2 games. So, starting things off with number 10. I really didn't know what to add for number 10. I went through so many, but then I thought, you know what? It has to be this. It's got to be this. If you want to be on my top 10, you got to top this game. I don't know how anybody could top this one, to be quite honest. It's Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. When this game was announced, me and my friends, Robert and Duke, we thought this was going to be an amazing game. They wound up getting this game day one. I went to their house. We played this for hours, for days, quite possibly weeks. It felt like weeks, but we just had an absolute blast with this game. You're going through the streets of San Andreas. It's in the year 1993 or 92, one of them years. And you play CJ. You're just getting out of jail. And then you're coming home to find that your town is like corrupted with like gang members and corrupt cops and everything. And this game was just bonkers. This game is just like how with any other Grand Theft Auto game, you go around, you're shooting up people, you're stealing cars, you're even stealing a jetpack in this game. But this game was just absolutely amazing. We had so much fun, especially with like slow motion rampages in this thing. I cried laughing at slow motion rampages. It was so freaking funny. But this game, I absolutely love it. Definitely worthy of being in the top 10 on anybody's list. San Andreas is just an amazing experience. I freaking loved it.
Number 9.
Number 9. Probably one of the best wrestling games I've ever played. WWF SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. This game was a step up from the past SmackDown games, and this was quite frankly one of the best wrestling games I've ever played on the PlayStation 2. The graphics were amazing, the gameplay was fantastic. I love the grappling system to it. When you initiate a grapple, you can go in between power, submission, signature, and quick. When you get them in a specific grapple, you'll do a specific maneuver. And that was actually pretty cool and pretty innovative during that time. As far as the roster goes, it's pretty much everybody that was prevalent during that time. They got The Rock, they got Steve Austin, Edge, Chris Benoit, Kurt Angle, and they also got guys like Brock Lesnar. You got Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas, and Rey Mysterio Jr., and even guys like Rhino, and even Sean O'Hare and Rodney Mack were in this game. That was actually pretty cool. And even they even got Kevin Nash. And what was also pretty cool about this game, they had legends. They had guys like Sergeant Slaughter, The $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, Jimmy Snuka, and Roddy Piper. The list goes on. And also this game was cool. They had the Elimination Chamber match. That thing looked like a big freaking bird cage. It's like a version of War Games and Hell in a Cell. It was pretty cool. It was very chaotic fun. Speaking of chaotic fun, when you get all your pals together and you're doing hardcore matches, y'all going through the streets, y'all going backstage, you're flying on helicopters and just riding that helicopter and just coming down on your pals and everything and just getting hit by cars and everything. This was absolute mayhem and it was absolute fun. I absolutely love SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. Definitely on my top 10. If y'all ain't never played that, y'all gotta play this. Because Here Comes the Pain is a freaking blast.
Number 8.
Alright, number 8. This was one of the first games I've seen for the PlayStation 2. And even though it's an RPG game, and I'm not really much of an RPG player, but I absolutely am fascinated with RPGs, especially JRPGs. Final Fantasy X. When I first saw this game, when I first saw the cinematics of this, and the graphics, and the music, and just the aesthetics of this whole game, I was just flabbergasted. I was mind blown. I was fascinated with everything with this game. I love the characters. I love Titus. I love Yuna. I love everybody in this game. Just like I said, like I'm an Aquarius, so I'm a sucker for water aesthetics. Games like water aesthetics were very prevalent during this time. It was prevalent with this. It was prevalent with on the GameCube, on the Xbox. Pretty much everything during this time just had water, and I loved it. I absolutely, 100% from the bottom of my heart, love water aesthetics. Even my dad was blown away by this. He was so blown away by the cinematics of this game. He was saying that it was beyond the mind's eye. He was fascinated with this game. He absolutely loved it. Max, he played this a lot, and my friend Carshaleen and Harpoon, they played it a lot. So I played it mostly with them, and then when I finally got it, I tried playing it, and it's actually pretty fun. Even though I suck at RPGs, I'm just fascinated with games like this. The music was great. The graphics were out of this world. The graphics on this game was just absolutely fantastic. I can't stress that about enough. The graphical leap from the PS1 to the PS2 was just phenomenal. Absolutely 100% phenomenal. And Final Fantasy X was just that. Absolutely amazing.
Number 7.
Next is, quite frankly, one of the best games I've played on the PS2. I absolutely adored this game. Ratchet & Clank 2 Going Commando. Max got me this for Christmas 2004, 2005. It's one of them years, but when I played this game, I was just fascinated with it. I was fascinated with the graphics. I was fascinated with the gameplay. I was fascinated with the worlds and the whole aesthetics of it. The atmosphere of it, the outer space aesthetics. In this game, you play as Ratchet & Clank. You're going on a wild goose chase to try to find out the whereabouts of a so-called experiment from some kind of criminal mastermind. And it's all at the request of a guy called Fizzwidget. What a name. But this game, you go through the worlds, you're trying to find the criminal mastermind behind the abduction of the experiment. And things let's just say things take a wild turn midway through the game and towards the end. And towards the end, it was just like, what is going on? It's one of them games where it's like, what is going on here? Exactly, just everybody, just hold on a second. Just what is going on here? But the weapons in this thing are in between fantastic and absolute bonkers. You got big guns, you're going on freaking just taking out hordes of enemies. It's freaking fun. I absolutely love this game. Ratchet & Clank 2 Going Commando. Even though I played the first one, I'd say this one's like way better than the first one. And I played a little bit of the third one, but this was during the time I was playing like Jak and Daxter and other games. But Ratchet & Clank Going Commando, there was something about it, I just absolutely loved it. And it's definitely in my top 10 on the PS2.
Number 6!
Oh, man. This one right here. This one right here. Max and Karshleet, they both played this game a lot. A lot. And this was also one of the first games I played on the PS2. Devil May Cry. When I heard about this game, I didn't know whether or not I should play this game because it got devil in it, and I'm like, I don't know about that, man. I don't know about this. But when Max was playing it, I just thought, he said that this game was amazing. And when I saw it, I thought this game looked absolutely amazing. The gameplay of this was absolutely frantic. The character Dante was just off the wall and wisecracking. The environment of this game was just absolutely stunning. And this was one of the first games within the PS2's first year. This was amazing. And the music on this game, it goes from like gothic to just hard rock and just hard riffs and everything. The music on this game was great. The graphics were just fantastic. For its time, it was great. And the gameplay was great. The characters were great. Devil May Cry was one of them games where I just played with my cousin and my friend Karshleet because they loved this game and I liked it as well. But Devil May Cry, the first one, even though the third one is like way better, but I just like there's something about the first one that just left a big impression on me during the early days of the PS2, and it was just absolutely fascinating.
Number 5!
This game right here. You have no idea just how much fun me, my friends, Karshleet, Harpoon, and sometimes Jacob, and sometimes T-Man. Us four getting together, playing this game was just, during the early days of the PlayStation 2, was just absolute frantic. WWF SmackDown, just bring it. When this game came out, my friend Karshleet, he had this, and we just, all four of us just had an absolute blast. Remember the times when I was talking about how on the GameCube we was playing Smash Bros. Melee and Luigi's Mansion, and on the PS2 we was playing GTA 3 and SmackDown. And just as much as we was having so much frantic fun with Smash Bros. Melee, we was having a blast with a capital B with SmackDown, Just Bring It. This game was just absolute frantic. It was absolute mayhem. The stuff that we was doing in this game, we created our guys, and we was also playing guys, and we alternated with guys like Steve Austin, Jericho, and The Undertaker. They had a whole bunch of guys in this game. They even had guys from ECW. They had guys like Jerry Lynn, Raven, Taz, the Dudley Boys. Spike Dudley and Rhino were in the game as well. They had a lot of ECW guys in this game. But in this game, it plays just like the original SmackDown games on the PS1, except the graphics are a lot more fine-tuned. Even though, like, comparatively speaking to something like Here Comes the Pain that came out 2 years later, this game was actually really good. This time you finally got guys coming out in full-out entrances. The gameplay's fast-paced, they got hardcore matches, they got hardcore weapons. You can go into the crowd, which was bonkers. They had Hell in a Cell matches, they had regular cage matches. You can go backstage, and the backstage areas were just immersive. The backstage areas were huge. You can go outside, you go to subways, you go to WWF New York. You find in the boiler rooms, you find in the corridors, you find in locker rooms, the office. If you're playing hardcore matching, you got 3 or 4 of your pals with you, and y'all just we had an absolute fun time, absolute blast with this game. I wish I had a video camera recording those times that we had playing this game. Dude, this was absolutely amazing. This was absolutely one of the best games I played on the PS2. Even though the graphics, like I said, are inferior to like Here Comes the Pain, but there was just something about this game that we just absolutely loved. Just absolute frantic fun. Going backstage and just freaking battling it out in hardcore matches, getting run over by cars and everything, like commit vehicular manslaughter. This game was just an absolute blast. I absolutely love it. I hold it in a very high regard on the PS2. and definitely one of the most important games I played on the PS2. Because especially, like I said, with my friends and everything, like I said, I just wish I had a camera just to record the shit talking, the absolute fun, and the laughter, the music playing in the background, everything. Like everything from POD to Saliva, Linkin Park, Disturbed, and just a lot of those new metal hits during that time. We was playing it in the background, playing this game. It was absolute fun.
Number 4.
Empty. Bang! Oh, I was just about to ask you if you can give me another drink.
Oh, here.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, my baby. Okay, bye.
I need to clean house. You want pancakes for supper?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
I would love that.
Bye.
Bye. I love this woman. I love this woman. Oh, she opened it up for me. Now, that being said, yeah, number four right now is one of the best games I've ever played on the PlayStation 2, and that's Jak and Daxter. Jak and Daxter has got to be one of the best games I've ever played, ever. Outside of Nintendo games like Mario, Banjo-Kazooie, and Donkey Kong, and even Crash Bandicoot on the PS1, Jak and Daxter was absolutely one of the best games, one of the best platformers I've ever played. I remember the commercials to them. I thought they was absolutely funny. I absolutely love the duo. I love the chemistry between them. Even though Jak is a silent one and Daxter is like the hilarious one, this game, these two just work together, and I love it. Daxter gets turned into an Otzel by this thing called Dark Eco that was created by the main bad guys Gaul and Maya, and then they have to go on a venture to turn Daxter back to normal, but with the help of Gaul and Maya. Yeah, right. Like they're gonna actually help him. But as you go through the whole world, it's like there's no load times. This game was just a big open world with no load times hardly at all. Just going from world to world, it just felt seamless. It just felt like you were actually there. Like there was much like how on Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, how you go to worlds, you go warp and everything. No. This is the whole world is just that one game. This was mind-blowing. But other than that, the controls, it's very similar to like Crash Bandicoot, but this time you got the help of these magical elements called the Eco, and it's very much helpful throughout the entire journey. You go around discovering precursor artifacts, you go find secrets, you go find dazzling artifacts, and this game was just amazing. Absolutely, hands down, Jak and Daxter, one of the best games I've ever played, ever. Like quite possibly, like outside of Nintendo, Jak and Daxter is very much one of the best games I've ever played. I would play this game again. I freaking loved it.
Number 3.
And just when you thought Jak and Daxter was one of the best platformers you ever played, out comes Jak 2. Jak 2. I was like immediately like turned off by it. I was like, wait a minute, like why is Jak and Daxter going to like a darker world? He's got a gun and everything, and like what's going on here? It's like it was very off-putting to me. So I didn't really play it at that time. But then like maybe a year or two later, my friends Robert and Duke, they had it, and I was like, okay, I'll try it out. And when I played it, it was actually pretty fun. The reason why they went with this direction is definitely because of the whole Grand Theft Auto Vice City type crap and everything. And I was like, why would they gotta change the... But in this game, you get transported to a world called Haven City. Jak gets captured by an elite guard, and then he gets experimented on with Dark Eco, and it makes him turn into this hulking Dark Jak. And at first I thought, I was like, it was kind of off-putting, but it was alright. But this time Jak's actually talking, and he sounds really cool. And throughout this whole game, you just going through like a whole bunch of drama, conflict, and surprises, friendships, betrayals, love, revenge. This game just has a whole bunch going on for it. You got weapons, you got vehicles, you got a surfboard, a very deep and compelling storyline to it. This game was like, when it comes to the story, this like something big was about to happen, and you definitely find out throughout the whole game. A lot of like turns and twists and plot twists, and just like, dude, what is going on here? and it's like, dude, this is freaking amazing. And by the time you get to the final boss, everything just becomes clear to you. But I highly recommend Jak and Daxter, and I highly recommend Jak 2. Definitely. Even though I was kind of turned off by the whole dark atmosphere and everything, but overall, Jak 2 was a fantastic game.
Number 2!
Just when you thought Jak and Daxter and Jak 2 couldn't get any better, just wait till you check out Jak 3. Just when you thought that it couldn't get any bigger than Jak and Daxter and Jak 2, Jak 3 turned the volume up 11-fold. In this game, you get banished, left for dead in the desert, then you go into this forsaken land called Spargus. It's very much like a Mad Max setting to it, especially like being in the desert and having like similar vehicles and weapons and aesthetics and all that good stuff. And then they wind up going back to Haven City, trying to save that city, and then soon you start realizing that the worst nightmare imaginable finds Jak's world, and it's about to threaten and annihilate all life with eternal darkness, something that Jak knows all too well about. This game just did a lot of good things right. It did a lot of good things. It pretty much tied up the whole trilogy with a nice big old gigantic bow. You finally find out who the precursors are. You find out who this mythical warrior called Mar is. And this game was just, by the time from when you turn it on, from when you first started to the end, just an absolute amazing game. Very, very great storytelling. The graphics were amazing. The gameplay was great. The music was great as well. But absolutely, the Jak and Daxter 3, well, Jak 3, just an amazing end to the trilogy. The Jak and Daxter trilogy is definitely one of the best games I've ever played. I absolutely love them. 1, 2, and 3. 3 is definitely a great way to end the trilogy, and I highly recommend it. It was absolutely one of the best games I've ever played.
And now, number 1!
How do I even begin to talk about this one? I've never talked about this, but I'm going to finally talk about it right now. This is something that I've never spoke of on this channel, and I think is well overdue. This game, to say that this game was a game changer, to say that this game was mind-blowing, amazing, fascinating, all the words that I've said during the last 9 weeks on these top 10 games is an understatement. This game right here, number 1 for the PS2, was not just one of the best games I've ever played, but it is one of the most important games I have ever played in my life. Grand Theft Auto 3. This was the first game I ever got for the PS2 on Christmas 2001. And yes, I did play Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2 on PC with Robert and Duke years prior. But when I got Grand Theft Auto 3 as the first game I got on PS2, at first I was excited because I remember playing the first 2 on the PC, but then going to number 3. At the same time, I was like, I don't know if this could be like the first game. But when I turned that game on, it runs the opening sequences, I just knew that what I was about to experience was nothing like I'd ever seen before at all. This game was more than just mind-blowing. This game was more than just great, amazing. This game was a paradigm shift. The things that you can do in this game was nothing like I've ever seen before or experienced before in a video game. the open worldness, getting into vehicles, just cruising around, doing whatever you want to do in this game was just nothing I've ever seen before. And the characters in this game were just amazing. The interactions between them, the language that they spoke and everything, and going on missions for them, and just interacting with them, even though your character is silent, just hearing their stories talk and everything, just hearing their stories play out, and just going through all the missions, and the story of it being like you're the guy that you got left for dead by your girlfriend, and then you want to go get revenge on her, but at the same time you're having to do jobs for mobsters, for crooks, criminals, crooked cops, hoes, and everything. This game was just like nothing I've ever seen before. And to say that like this was one of the most important games I've ever played, you gotta understand, like I've said at the beginning of the video, 16 years old, PS2, that you had the PS2, that was it. Playing this game, there was just, like I said, my mind was just, I wasn't just mind blown. My brain just expanded. It expanded my horizons to what video games could become and what video games were going to become. The amount of freedom that you can do in this game, the things that you can do, like stealing vehicles, shooting up places, outrunning cops. This game was just phenomenal. This game was fantastic. One of the best games I've ever played. And the times that I played with this game with my cousins, my friends from high school, the things that we, especially through Portville, I just think about all the times of like the music that I heard like with Sum 41, Disturbed, and PODs, and games like Luigi's Mansion and Smash Bros. Melee with Karchly and Harpoon. Then going on to Staunton Island, and all the times I played with my cousin DK in Mississippi and everything, going to Shoreside Vale. This whole game, one of the best games I've ever played. One of the most important games I've ever played. The graphics on it were great. The music and the radio stations were fantastic. Everything about this game was just, I can't stress about it enough. This was one of the best games, most important games I've ever played, and definitely sits at top as my #1 game on the PS2. So there you have it. DwreckTV's top 10 PS2 games, right here, all in a nice GTA sandwich. I gotta take a swig. Finally, being able to talk about the PS2, it's a load off me. Finally being able to talk about this thing after all these years. The PS2, if anybody wants to say what is DwreckTV's favorite console, the PS2 definitely is as one of my top favorite ones, because you gotta think, you gotta understand, during this time, the games, the graphics, everything about this era between the PS2, the GameCube, and the Xbox was just fascinating. Probably one of the best generations I've ever experienced. One of the best generations of gaming. And like I said, I just wish that teenagers nowadays could experience the awesomeness of this era, because there's a whole lot of great games that came out during this time. Everything from Grand Theft Autos to Jak and Daxters, and even like God of Wars, Ratchet and Clanks, and even Prince of Persia's, Halos, even games on the GameCube like Mario and Star Fox Adventures and Metroid Prime, Wind Waker, Smash Brothers. The list goes on and on. I could go on all day listing all the great games that came out during this time. If you're a teenager and you're curious about getting PS2 games, listen to me. Don't get them on any kind of emulator. Don't get them on like no PS network or anything. Save up your money. Get a PlayStation 2 off eBay or at a RetroCon or anywhere. Make sure they work too. And buy the games off eBay. I don't care how much it costs. Save up your money. Start getting a PS2 and even the GameCube and the Xbox, because these games, playing it on online services, don't do it justice. you gotta play them on the original hardware. That's where the real experience is. I told this, and I've done this with my nephews. They say that playing them on the original systems is a way better experience than playing them online. But that's a different argument for a different day. But in closing, the PlayStation 2 was one of the best systems I've ever played on. One of the greatest, one of the most important systems ever. It was my first DVD player. It also acted as a CD player on the TV screen. I was playing my PS1 games on this for the longest time until I finally got a PS1 off eBay in 2018. But between me, my cousins, and my best friends from high school that I still talk to them to this day, and they still say like the PlayStation 2 is one of the best systems ever. I feel great talking about this. I could talk about this thing all day. But anyway, this is Dwreck signing out. See y'all on the flip side.
DwreckTV. Hi guys, hit the notification bell and the like button. Yeah.